Welcome back. You're watching The Full View. Well, political matters see red. Today, EFF continued with its celebrations in Mpumalanga as a stronghold in the opposition as the party turned 6 yesterday. The ANC NEC has also come out in full support of Derek Hanekom on earlier allegations by the EFF that Hanekom colluded with its MPs to engineer a vote of no confidence in former President Jacob Zuma. For more on this, we are now joined by Professor Kwandiwe Kondlo from the Department of Political Sciences at the University of Johannesburg. Very good evening to you, Prof. Good to have you in studio again.
Thank you, Chantal.
Essentially, it's not anything new for the EFF to be ruffling feathers, and it seems that they have been doing exactly that since its inception a couple of years ago. Let's talk about some of the strong bearings that they've brought over the past couple of years.
Well, over the past couple of years, as we all know, they were very vocal regarding the issues of corruption involving the former president, Mr. Zuma. And quite importantly, the EFF has also been very vocal on the land question, the resolution of the land question. And I think that's a very important point, and I really admire them for that. And they've also been vocal about the issue of corruption generally in the country, and especially the role of what they call white monopoly capital in South Africa's political economy. Yes, so this is an organization of young people, really, and is growing at a very good rate. And the question is whether we should really embrace it as the future of South African politics. That one is debatable. Yes.
Now, in terms of the somewhat new dynamics that this political party has brought to the fore, in terms of their social interaction, in terms of the spread that they have not only in South Africa, but what they seemingly seem to have across Africa. We also heard the Commander-in-Chief, Mr. Julius Malema, echo those sentiments, which he again also did, in the earlier government elections with regards to Africa unity, acknowledging our foreigners in the country. Let's take us through the importance of his stronghold of having African supporters, not only in South Africa, but seemingly in other African countries, calling for, the movement and the liberation movement, rather, of EFF in those countries.
Yes, I think the EFF is doing very well, and Mr. Malema is absolutely correct when he puts emphasis on the issue of African unity. This is an idea which has been conceptualized long ago, but I don't think political leaders in the various states and various political parties in the African continent are actually giving it the priority it deserves. And he made a very important point about the borders that need to be dismantled. And I would actually say, let's make an example in Southern Africa first, you see. The idea of African unity is very important for Africa's development and for Africa's success and even respect in the international community. I think that was a very important point that he made. And he also, again, made a point about white monopoly capital, where he spoke about Mr. Rupert. But I beg to differ with him on that one. I would actually say, let's not encourage anyone to pack and go, leave South Africa. Instead, we can advise and encourage Mr. Rupert to continue staying and investing in South Africa. Because, I mean, the situation the country is in right now, we really need a lot of useful hands on deck, especially from the investment community, to make sure that we grow our economy.
What sort of statement can we read from Mr. Malema and, of course, the party having their 6th anniversary celebrations in the Mpumalanga province? Of course, it has been deemed as the official opposition stronghold for them, but why not have it in his home province of Limpopo?
Well, Chantal, I wouldn't know, but it was quite a successful event if you actually watched on TV, and you can actually see that they enjoy support in that particular province. Hence, they are the official opposition party.
Let's now take it back to, on the note of corruption, let's move away from the EFF. Let's talk about the ANC. The ANC NEC had released a statement from the top six. Of course, they have come out in full support of some of the allegations that were indeed made by the EFF against one of its own members, Mr. Derek Hanekom, of course, and the allegations that he had colluded with EFF members to engineer a vote of no confidence against President or former President Jacob Zuma.
Yes, if the ANC really was a healthy, united organization, I don't think they would have entertained so seriously the disclosures made by Mr. Malema. Because remember, during that period, there was a lot of lobbying and conversations between and among political parties about Mr. Zuma's removal. Because he was president of the country, but he had lost legitimacy. And I was naturally not shocked that Mr. Hanekom went to the extent of even talking to the EFF. A united, healthy ANC wouldn't really have wasted time dealing with this matter and further dividing a divided organization.
But how usual, or rather how unusual is this? In the statement, it also cites that the former chief whip of the ANC back in 2018 had said that they had announced going into these talks that the EFF would be having talks, or the governing party would be hosting talks with the EFF to talk about the ways to go forward. So how unusual is this?
Well, it's not unusual given the state of, should I say, turmoil within the ANC. The ANC is a deeply divided organization. It's actually a sick organization to be the governing party of South Africa. And really, I hope they find each other in the end. Otherwise, you cannot have a South Africa which is facing so many challenges, led by a governing party which is constantly in war with itself.
Let's talk about that discourse that we see in the conflicting statements that we saw on this matter alone. We saw the SG Ace Bakashule, giving his comments on Derek Hanekom, and then we saw the completely opposite from the ANC NEC giving their full support behind Mr. Hanekom in this regard.
Yeah, it actually shows that the old factions, pre-Nazareth conference factions, they are still there, you see. Whenever there's an opportunity to attack the other who belongs to another faction, that opportunity is not wasted, it's actually used. Yeah. Because if the ANC was really consistent and serious about its members adhering to ANC constitution, that would have started with Mr. Zuma himself. Yeah. There are numerous areas, issues, contradictions, and embarrassing moments Mr. Zuma actually put the organization through. But we've never had, even once, the ANC actually setting up an internal probe and maybe a disciplinary hearing against Mr. Zuma. So the ANC, in enforcing adherence to its constitution, has to be even-handed. Eh?
We also saw, of course, Derek being described as being attacked by the EFF. In having a look at in specific the timing in which the attack came from the EFF, is this not possibly that Mr. Hanekom is being singled out? We do know that he is described to be a strategic ally of Pravin Gordhan, notably which the EFF has been after since last year.
Well, I'm not sure about whether he's a strategic ally of Mr. Pravin Gordhan. You see, there's just a lot of conflicts within the ANC, you see. But all I know is that Mr. Hanekom, if you remember well, actually chaired a disciplinary committee which led to the dismissal of Julius Malema. And it's very interesting that the same Julius Malema makes a disclosure about Mr. Hanekom, which actually perhaps could have forced the ANC to discipline Mr. Hanekom. So these are personality politics, a lot of intrigue which is going on. It's not really advancing the agenda of democratizing the economy, developing the country, facing the serious challenges that are part of the everyday life of ordinary South Africans.
Just before we wrap up, what can we read from the ANC NEC giving support to Hanekom?
Well, one would say the Ramaphosa faction is actually getting an upper hand. And I would not be surprised, because Mr. Ramaphosa is the president of the ANC, and he definitely commands a lot of support. But one could even say maybe within the ANC, sanity is beginning to prevail, to say, look guys, we can't keep fighting over very petty issues when we have serious agenda items of policy we need to deliver on.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. That was political analyst Professor Kwandiwe Kondlo, just taking us through as we have a look at the week that was, specifically as the EFF turned 6, as well as the ANC NEC coming out in full support of those allegations made by the EFF against its own Mr. Derek Hanekom.